What if we took the names of all of the Pokémon from Generation 3 and turned them into jingles? We can achieve this by utilizing my letters to notes methodology, where we repeat the alphabet across the musical notes A through G. We can take any name or word, spell it out on the piano, and turn it into a melody. I'm challenging myself to see if I can create musical motifs that best represent the personality of each Pokémon. I've already covered the Kanto Pokémon and the Johto Pokémon, and now it's finally time to tackle the Hoenn Pokémon, which is my favorite generation. Let's get started with arguably the best starters in all of Pokémon, which would be the Treecko line, the Torchic line, and the Mudkip line. I think those turned out pretty cool. As we move forward, one thing that's going to be really cool is discovering light motifs among certain Pokemon. This will occur whenever Pokemon evolution lines happen to have a similar naming scheme. There wasn't too much of that in the starters, aside from maybe Combuskin and Blaziken sharing the ending of their names. But I would say our first example of a true light motif happens with Poochyena and Mightyena. On the topic of light motifs, sometimes it will occur just based on the nature of the letters to notes methodology. Zigzagoon and Linoon are really interesting because even though they start with different letters, with Zigzagoon starting with Z-I-G and Linoon starting with L-I-N, looking at the letters to notes methodology here, Z and L end up on the same note, which is E. They both happen to have I in the second letter of their name, and while the letter G is naturally on the note G, the letter N happens to land on that same note. Then they both have O-O-N at the end of their names, with Linoon having an E at the very end. What's really cool is that it sort of creates this sort of call and response with Linoon having a more distinctive ending. Check it out. For Pokemon with branching evolution lines like Wurmple here, what I like to do is showcase evolution lines individually. So Wurmple, Silcoon, Beautifly, and then Wurmple, Cascoon, Dustox, with Silcoon and Cascoon sharing this Coon leitmotif. Next up is the Lotad line. Lotad and Lombre happen to start similarly due to the letters to notes methodology, and I really tried to create something a little bit more groovy and upbeat for this evolution line. I can't help but think about Ludicolo from Pokemon Coliseum dancing to Mirror B's battle theme. So that's the vibe I ended up going with. On the other hand, I went for something a little bit more dark and mischievous for the C-Dot line. Tailo and Swellow are known for being gutsy and brave. They also share a leitmotif with Lo in their names. Now, you may have noticed that I utilize the black keys in a lot of these jingles, and you're probably wondering why I use them when they don't have letters assigned to them. This is because the black keys are used for flexibility and creative interpretation. For example, since the note D can be both D flat and D sharp, we can also use that concept for the letters K, R, and Y that share that note. And this obviously applies for the rest of the notes as well. I also get comments on previous videos and shorts claiming that my letters to notes methodology is actually fake, because the piano on screen isn't actually playing the correct notes that they are hearing. But with the letters to notes methodology, all octaves are implied. So no, my content isn't fake and my content isn't AI. I work pretty hard on my music and videos, and I'm really proud of how they turn out. Anyways, putting aside that little tangent, Wingull and Pelipper utilize both black keys as well as octaves within their jingles. The Ralts line is known for being able to sense the emotions of people around them. So I wanted to create something slow and flowy that matched that idea. And although I did say I'd like to showcase the individual evolution lines, since Gallade is from Generation 4, we will not be exploring this Pokemon in this video. I guess you'll just have to subscribe to the channel and check out the Generation 4 video when that comes out. There's not much to say about Surskit and Masquerain as well as Shroomish and Breloom, so here are their jingles. I read about this really interesting concept for the Slackoth line. Slackoth starts as being very lazy, but he wants to turn his life around, so when he evolves into Vigoroth, he works and trains hard, which is why he's very energetic. But then he decided it wasn't worth it and decided to embrace his laziness as a slacking. I thought that was pretty funny, so I decided to go for that vibe with their jingles. Nincada is really cool because if you evolve him into Ninjask with an open slot in your party, you also get a Shedinja. This technically isn't really a branching evolution line like Wurmple or Ralts, so I'm just going to showcase them back to back as normal. For the Whismur line, it was pretty obvious the direction that we had to go for these Pokemon. With their names being puns off of Whisper, Loud, and Explode, the volume grows as we progress through this jingle. Sometimes what really helps accent these melodies are the chord progressions that are happening behind them. Usually with fighting-type Pokemon like Makuhita and Hariyama, I like to experiment with different rhythms in the chord progressions. It makes it feel like they're fighting, punching, and kicking with the rhythm of their jingle. If you watched my Generation 2 video, then you saw how we brought back a lot of Generation 1 Pokemon when they had new evolution lines tied to them. That doesn't really happen too often in Generation 3, but this is the first example of that, with Azurill being the pre-evolution of Marill and Azumarill. Nosepass is by himself for the time being, but he will make a return in the Generation 4 video. Skitty and Delcatty have a named leitmotif with TTY at the end of their names. For some reason, I always thought Sableye and Mawile were like rivals with each other. Kind of like Zangoose and Seviper, who we'll get to later. But I guess I'm just thinking about how they are version exclusives, with Mawile being in Ruby and Sableye being in Sapphire. We get the Ron motif with the Aron line. Aron? 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 How do you say his name? I don't even know. Electrike and Manectric, they kind of have a couple letters in common, but it's not enough to really make a leitmotif out of. But if you've seen some of my other videos, the Electrike jingle might sound a little familiar to you. In particular, the electric motif that plays in my Lieutenant Surge battle theme. This was a project called Badge-Bound Kanto, where I created original gym leader battle music for all of the Kanto gym leaders. You can actually find my album both on Bandcamp and on Spotify, as well as all streaming platforms. If you haven't listened to my new album yet, the link will be in the description for both of those. Okay, listen, I highly recommend that you check out my album. I might be a little biased, but I love the music that I create, and I've been getting a lot of warm reception from the community with my new music. I really appreciate anyone who downloaded the album on my Bandcamp. That really supports me and allows me to continue making music and videos and content for you guys. But I also really appreciate if you've listened to my music on YouTube or Spotify or other streaming platforms. So click on the links in the description below to listen to my music. So next up, we have a couple of Pokemon who were created to be paired up with each other. That would be Plusle and Minun, as well as Volbeat and Illumise. Even though Pokemon like this don't evolve into each other, I decided to combine their Jingles together anyways. It just felt right to combine the Pokemon who were meant to be pairs. Roselia is by itself for now, but soon, Generation 4 video, you will make a comeback. You know, creating a ton of Pokemon Jingles like this, even across all of my videos, can be really difficult to do. Look at Gulpin and Swallow, they're just blobs. How do you make musical jingles for them? Well, I'll give it a try. I think that turned out pretty okay, but the direction for Carvanha and Sharpedo felt so obvious. Comment down below if you know what I was going for. Let's contrast that intensity with something a little bit more calm with Wailmer and Wailord. Ooh, Spinda's a really interesting one. Trying to make a musical jingle that portrays dizziness can go in so many directions. Let me know if you think I nailed that vibe. Flygon is my all-time favorite Pokemon, so I spent a little bit of extra time trying to make his jingle sound really cool. Since the Trapinch line lives in the desert and Flygon is nicknamed the elemental spirit of the desert, I wanted to go for something more exotic, like a D Phrygian scale. The kind of scale you normally hear in desert music and lots of media. I feel like I could do so much more with this if there were more instruments involved, but for this video, we're only focusing on the piano. We get the cack motif. That sounds so stupid to say. The cack motif for Cacnea and Cacturne. Meanwhile, no leitmotifs for Swablu and Altaria, just graceful elegance. Here are a few more Pokemon who were created in pairs, with Zangoose and Seviper being rivals with each other, with Lunatone and Solrock being natural pairs representing the moon and the sun. Bar 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 boach. Bar 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 boach. Bar 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 boach. Stupid. When trying to make the jingle for Corphish and Crawdont, I imagine them scuttling across the beach. Ooh, the fossil Pokemon. So if you saw my Generation 1 video, what I did for the fossil Pokemon is I went for the vibe of sort of this ancient history, archaeological discovery, something that felt very ancient and looking into the past kind of vibe, if that makes any sense. So I want to repeat that pattern with this group of fossil Pokemon, combining all 4 of them into one jingle. To go from something as ugly and pathetic as Feebas to something majestic and beautiful as Milotic, I decided to not add chords for them, just octaves to try to keep them cohesive with each other while portraying their personality traits. A project like this is really fun but super challenging. It's really getting me to exercise my musical brain and really trying to make these jingles sound different from each other. For cast form, I wanted to showcase all of its forms. By doing so, we actually get the form motif, with cast form, sunny form, rainy form, and snowy form. And since he's the weather Pokemon, I decided to go for that sort of breaking news kind of jingle. You'll see what I mean. Can we make Kecleon sound like he's invisible and trying to sneak around? Ghost Pokemon, the Shuppet line and the Duskull line. They just gotta sound spoopy. For Tropius, I wanted to go for something big and majestic, kind of like Jurassic Park vibes, but without actually using any musical motifs from Jurassic Park. Let me know how I did. Chimecho should just sound like chimes blowing in the wind. I love the lore of Absol being known as the disaster Pokemon. Does this jingle make it sound like he's about to alert you to some big disaster that's about to happen? So with Why Not, we finally get to bring back another Pokemon from a previous generation, Wobbuffet. I'm pretty sure this is the last time it happens in this generation as well. I feel like Snorunt and Glalie are sort of the main Ice-type Pokemon in this generation, so I tried to go for something that sounded a little bit more chilling. Here's another example of branching evolution lines, so you'll get Clamperl and Huntail, and then Clamperl and Gorbis. Similar to the fossil Pokemon, I wanted to give Relicanth that sort of ancient history of the past kind of vibe with his jingle. Luvdisc, the heart-shaped Pokemon. Okay, so try to make it as sweet and cute and lovey-dovey as possible. We have something interesting here where Bagon and Shelgon actually share a named motif with Gon in their names, but that doesn't appear in Salamence's name. Regardless, we'll try to make Salamence sound menacing. With the Beldum line being a mix of Steel and Psychic type, having themes of magnetism, and Metagross having 4 brains, being able to calculate faster than a supercomputer. That's what I really tried to lean into when creating their jingles. Next up, we get the Reggie motif. No, not that Reggie. These Reggies, being Regirock, Regice, and Registeel. I always thought it was kind of dumb that it was Regice instead of Regice. I like saying Regice because it just matches the flow of their names. But anyways, if you've listened to my original music with Badge-bound Kanto and Elite-bound Kanto, you may recognize 2 of the motifs here with Rock and Ice. Rock coming from the Brock song that I made called Boulder, and Ice coming from my Lorelei battle theme called Frozen Solid. I did my little promo earlier in the video, so I won't go too deep into that. But I just thought that would be a fun thing to point out. Whenever there's repeating words or motifs as I go through the Pokemon series, I like to try to have some kind of cohesive continuity across all of my jingles and music, as best as I can anyway. So, Latios and Latios is really interesting. Their jingles actually sound exactly the same just due to the nature of the letters to notes methodology. Their one letter difference being A and O, and both of those letters appear on the A note. So what I actually decided to do is change the octave of the last letter in their name. The S in Latios goes up, while the S in Latios goes down. I feel like there's only one direction to go with when it comes to Kyogre, Groudon, and Rayquaza, the Weather Trio. It's too bad they don't have any kind of naming scheme to tie them together musically, but we are going to combine all three of them and make them sound world-shattering and disastrous. Jirachi is the wish Pokemon, so maybe making a wish sounds something like this. Our final Pokemon here is Deoxys. I wanted to go through all of his different forms. And since he's this creepy DNA Pokemon that came from outer space, I wanted to go for something a little bit more bizarre. So with that in mind, I decided to make the key of his song in A Locrian. I feel like it's pretty rare to hear music written in Locrian mode nowadays. It's a pretty difficult key to write in. But I feel like a great utilization of Locrian is for a boss battle theme, especially for something menacing and creepy as Deoxys. And that's all of the Generation 3 Pokemon. Comment down below which one was your favorite. And like I mentioned earlier in the video, I will be tackling all of the generations eventually. So Generation 4 will be coming up in the near future. But for now, you can either go back to my previous Generation 1 and Generation 2 Pokemon jingles, or you can check out my original music with Badge Bound Kanto and Elite Bound Kanto. Thanks for watching!